Well, good afternoon and welcome to all the folks on other planets who are looking in, and Happy New Year. It's really a pleasure to be with you. Having the opportunity to read out loud has taught me important things about writing poetry that I don't think, if I hadn't had the experience of doing this, I would have been so aware of the importance of the dramatic arc. Even inside a lyric poem, there's still a story, there's still a direction that it goes. And when you say it out loud and when you see people's faces respond, then you say, ah, that's important, got to do that. Well, let me start with a little context because this might seem like a strange kind of combination. But when I was in college, one of the major intellectual issues was the conflict. It was a kind of Cold War, actually, between humanities and the sciences. The idea was these were two completely incompatible realms, and the twain would never meet. Well, as science fiction has become science fact, not only are these two disparate realms meeting, they're actually melting together. There will be, in this century, people walking on Mars. There will be, in this century, established communities on the moon like there are in Antarctica or there were in North America as the Europeans came over. This is a dream, but it's no longer a fantasy. So it's really amazing to think in our lifetime that we've gone from what was basically just narrative, any book you could pick up about, something that's going to happen on Jupiter or whatever, it was fine, it was imagination. And now, well, it won't be Jupiter because Jupiter's just a giant gas bomb, but we will get to rocky planets. And I think that the first child not born on the Earth will be born in this century on some place or other, either in a spaceship. And if it happens on the moon, we'll have our first legitimate lunatic, which I think is the way it should be. Well, jumping back many tens of thousands years before my freshman year in college, our prehistoric forebears gradually became aware of the lights in the sky and that they were not random, the night lights. They traced patterns in space and time. And studying these patterns and giving them names and shapes led to the beginning not only of astrology and astronomy, but also to science itself, and actually to poetry. According to Plato, I think I have this right, somebody may correct me on it, it was the natural world in which human beings found themselves for whatever inexplicable reason, why are we here, which they then attributed to the gods. Oh, the gods put us here. Okay, good. The natural world inspired celebrations in poetry and ever more careful examination of how the earth and the heavens were put together. We see things like the Stone Age structures at Stonehenge, which are actually quite sophisticated calendars, and the Aztecs, of course, have a calendar which we still don't understand. I mean, that seems to be more accurate than ours that requires leap years and lunar months and craziness. So there were things like that, and then eventually those were translated into language and geometry by the Greek philosophers, whether it was Archimedes or Ptolemy or Pythagoras or Aristotle. So there's been this gradual consolidation of what we understand scientifically from what was simply, wow, look at that bright light, to, okay, gravity equals blah, 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 blah. In the West, as you all know, science took off in the 18th century with the discoveries of atoms and molecules and electricity and magnetism. And it was at this point in our history that the understanding of the world as we know it now really came together. But my goal this afternoon is to honor the original ancient awe of finding ourselves here, now, in this universe. So I hope you will enjoy. And if I were to say to you, okay, in the 20th century, who is one of the people you would pick out as the great scientists of time and space and so forth, it would probably be Einstein, It might be Stephen Hawking's, but it probably would be Einstein. So let's start with Einstein. This poem is called A Theory of Something. Einstein stumbled on an idea so startling, once others found it out, he denounced it, thundering like a prophet, throwing down the tablets. God does not play dice with the universe. Of course, his insights are amazing. Of course, he fathomed the marriage of time and space. When you look out in the world, into space, you're actually looking back in time, as you know. Staring at his equations, he became a prisoner of his own discoveries. A universe built on probabilities, like Las Vegas, matter popping in and out of existence, the oddly named quantum mechanics? Nope, he just wasn't having it. And especially entanglement at the subatomic realm, what he called spooky action at a distance. Protons, billions of miles apart, aligned and dancing like Fred and Ginger, particles fanning out like waves on a beach, or tunneling ghost-like through walls on infinite fields of virtual energy. Simply unacceptable. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. Matter tells space how to bend. Space tells matter how to move. Gravity equals acceleration. Oh, miraculous thoughts. Why not just let it be? Enough for endless immortality. Well, obviously, our nearest and dearest planet is the moon, and as it turns out, I've written quite a number of poems about the moon, so here you'll hear a couple today. So this poem is called Longing, and the German poet Goethe is quoted as saying, true happiness, I love this, true happiness is deep longing for something unattainable. Longing. Last night, as clouds lingered, I sent a kiss to the moon. Through mist she glowed, pure, ancient Artemis, Minerva, beloved of all peoples. Still, I feel her sadness, her longing to range the heavens, wild and alone, to be again the huntress among the deathless gods. But earth holds her, even as I, however tiny, hold her, as she holds me and you, the earth and the waters, a dance without end, eye to eye, thigh to tangoed thigh, forever. The clouds part as she appears, Leto's daughter, full in gown of evening blue, shocking the stars with her splendor, shining free across the heavens, glowing mirror of Apollo's sunlight, his silent silver sister of the night. This next poem is called Thus Spake Cassini, and I'm quoting a bit from a NASA release here before I read the poem. After a voyage of 19 years and 335 days, they're very precise at NASA, returning some of the most striking views of our solar system, the little spacecraft Cassini dove into Saturn's innermost ring. Circling the planet 22 times, it was plunged into the atmosphere and burned. NASA, however, I think, had not taken into account the fact that time spent in space turns an inanimate thing sentient, a being, in this case, Cassini, that would speak Italian. So here's Cassini's last transmission to NASA, which began in Italian, of course, and I'll translate. Creato con affetto e sopra un torre di fiamma mi mandò nel scuro dello spazio, which means they birthed me lovingly and sent me on a tower of fire, un torre di fiamma, into celestial darkness. I was to be their eyes, witness to marvels they had only guessed at, Titan's atmosphere of hazy green, the seething storms of Jupiter, and most and dearest of all, heaven's handmaiden, Queen Saturn, wreathed with ineluctable rings born of exploding moons. For 13 years I whirled high above, revealing views that held them astonished. Her polar hexagons of geometric turbulence, moons with methane oceans, in which, who knows, live methane fish, mini moonlets dotting the dense and tender rings, subtle and perfect in their orbs. But beyond all this, my crowning act was to know the goddess herself, to abandon all tact and fall into her embrace, inevitable. Spinning in tight orbits, ever closer, round and round they sped me, and now I can feel the brush of her veil. I am dizzy. I grow warmer in a frenzy. I send them everything I see and feel. It will take them years to unpack the treasures that I measure. Her burning breath engulfs me. Me, I am so near her, near. Oh, I. Sometimes you don't know what a poem is going to be till it comes out. So this is a poem that I think is really a children's poem, but I really like this poem, so I'm going to read you this poem. It's called Newton's Dream. One day, the moon fell out of the sky and landed in the branches of a tree. It was only a day moon and very pale. I see your eyes, said the tree, but part of your face is missing. I know, said the moon sadly, because the sun hasn't put it all back yet. Too bad, said the tree. Would you like an apple? Not so much, said the moon. As you see, I have only half a jaw. The tree nodded its branches. Another time then, perhaps, said the moon, and floated back up into the sky where it stayed all night and went to bed only when the sun came up on the other side of the world. Well, very often what happens for me is I'll have an idea and it'll stay with me for a while. I mean, it can stay with me even for a year or two, and then suddenly it finds its poem. And then then I work on the poem, and it's kind of like a snowball, slowly falling down a hill and just gathering more grit and birth. So this poem, however, called Starlight, was an idea that I thought of, and then it didn't go any further. It was just the idea that it was. An umbrella above me blocks the sky. New lights from the city flood my eyes. Should the stars all vanish, would I cry? Starlight is old, just passing by. Back to the moon. By the way, if something occurs to you while I'm reading or after I finish a poem, please let me know. But I can tell from your smiles that we're still doing okay. So this poem is called tidal locking, and tidal locking is an astronomical term I don't quite understand, but I think it has to do with the way planets are positioned in gravity with each other. So, okay, that sounds about right? I think so. Okay. In whatever house she resides, the moon watches us, unchanging, her Earth eye and space eye locked on their respective views. She turns in her perfected orbit as we spin in our own. In return for her constancy, she drives the tides, diurnal rise and fall, creating breath in the great oceans, the lungs of Earth, crashing through the Bay of Fundy like a waterfall, setting the promontory of Mont Saint-Michel adrift above its watery gardens for half a day or night, or some part of each. Luna, so much older than we, child of a planetary collision, like Minerva, born shining, fully formed, actually not quite, long before life knew her. Ever keeping watch, she may long outlive us. One day, eons forward, other star children, happening perhaps upon a silent earth, will survey the river deltas dry and dusty clay shoals, surmising, as we now say of Mars, quote, this location would have offered a habitable environment for life were such ever present. So this is called time travel, and it's born of airplane travel, which I don't know how many of you have done any more recently. It seems like airplane travel is fading off into a historical kind of event that happened once, especially if the computers don't work. Time travel. Passengers sprawl motionless in the oddest poses, as if drugged by their masks. Flight attendants swoop the dark aisles in bat-wing jackets, following their mission routes. You filed down a corridor, entered a door, found your seat. Time later, you will leave through the same door, file up a similar corridor, but the world will seem odd, a different rhythm. Jet lag is like walking in a crosswind, like watching another plane trace an impossible diagonal across the clouds beneath you. Your thoughts drift in similar non sequitur. There are gaps, and people watch you with unfamiliar eyes. If hopping across our planet is strange, how will it be on another planet? In Australia, it's already tomorrow. Will time even feel the same on Mars? One of the things that most amazed me as I studied more and more about astronomy and particularly astrophysics is that we have no sense really on a human level of how big the universe is. I mean, it's just astonishingly big. It's beyond anything we can actually understand. We can talk about it. We can say things like 10 to the minus 34 and various important numbers like that. But what it really is, like, we just can't know. We don't know. And that's kind of neat. That's sort of wonderful. So this poem is called Vastness. And actually, it's the first of two poems, and you can kind of think of it as a prelude and fugue, in the Bach prelude and fugue, where the prelude sets the tone and the key and gives you some ideas of various figures. And then the fugue is this well-developed, can be enormous creature of almost kind of as though you were building some vast coliseum, and that's the fugue. So, Vastness is the prelude, and it goes as follows. The vastness of out there humbles our daily logic. A spacecraft fleeing gravity needs days to reach the moon, months to touch down on Mars, years to pass the frozen surface of sea-bright Neptune, and yet many more years to finally cross the lip of the solar system, the delicate heliosphere, where the sun's breath ceases before it sails off unreturning among the stars. But not without looking back to see the Earth, a blue dot, the sun, a bright point in the velvet black, our solar system, a midge on one spiral arm of the Milky Way that is itself a little smear of light among trillions and trillions of galaxies, which can even collide, passing through each other like fog without anything ever touching. How amazing that we can craft such a sturdy scout and even talk with it across 1 billion miles as it leaves us forever. Much like putting our toe in the waters of an infinite ocean of unknowable shores. So that was the prelude. And here's the fugue. And once again, you'll hear this trope of how the inanimate becomes animate. This is one of the longest poems I've written. I was so amazed by Voyager 1 crossing this heliosphere, the lip of the heliosphere, and entering interstellar space, not the universe, not the solar system, but it's amazing. So this poem is called Like a Message in a Bottle. And here's some more quotes from NASA. Voyager 1, the man-made object farthest from the Earth, has reached the edge of our solar system where the outward motion of solar wind entirely ceases, entering what I call the untethered depths of interstellar space. Voyager 1 was speeding out of the solar system, beyond Neptune, at about 13.7 billion miles, 6 billion kilometers, from the sun, when mission managers commanded it to look back toward home for a final time. It snapped a series of 60 images that were used to create the first family portrait of our solar system. And in fact, you can find it on Google or whatever, and you can see each of the planets. They mounted them together so that you could see them, but it's quite amazing. The picture, however, would become known as the pale blue dot, which shows Earth within a scattered ray of sunlight. Voyager 1 was so far away that, from its vantage point, Earth was just a point of light about a pixel in size. And you consider you have 1 million pixels on your big television screen, and Earth was, all that was left was a pixel. Okay, like a message in a bottle. A few degrees above absolute zero, I sail in absolute silence, pinpoints of starlight dappling my outstretched arms. In the time of my beginnings, they gave me form and function. I had no thoughts, acting on their commands alone. I sent them, my soft, nervous creators, visions that astonished. The swirling red storm of Jupiter, the frozen seas of crackle-surfaced moons, exactly as they asked. And they held me their treasured thing, never expecting me to become, as they say, conscious and alive. They forget that everything is made of the same star scraps, tiny whizzing particles. They forget animate is inanimate's child, its hope, a mix of energy and inspiration. The minds they built me with, their hope, their love, their messages of longing that they might find other sentient ones, those thrilled me into consciousness, launched me into time. Sailing in starlight, building awareness from the dark energy of the void, I parsed the golden disk they placed inside me, the figures, he and she, they etched there, the voices of their children they recorded. As if dreaming, I now recite the orrery of planets: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. Trace the raveled skeins of DNA. Tell the rosary of music, the fundamental stream, Bach. All was new, all was beautiful. Only now I feel a change. The sun's pulse is slowing, dying, setting me adrift, and itself becoming for me just a tiny, lonely star, a yellow dot among the billion, billion, billion stars. And thus they who created will lose me, and thus I will be gone from them forever. Oh. Released into pure freedom, what awaits me? Will I glide alone on quantum particle seas, wander among glowing nebulae through eons beyond their imagining? And after still further universes of time, will I finally sail into a realm of beneficent beings who, welcoming, intrigued by the gold-etched geometries, outlines of earth and fish, pondering the hieroglyphic messages within me on my unexpected visit, will they, curious, turn their gaze toward the unfathomably distant and perhaps no longer existing star round which Earth's blue marble spun, and muse with fleeting sympathy, And what have they become? Thank you very much. Well, that was really a pleasure. Thank you.